Anyways, my name is David Piper. Yeah, go. My name is David Piper. And the way I got started in all of this, back in 2006, I joined the wood carving club down in Dade County, and that's where I met Jim Harris. So I've known Jim since 2006. And then around 2010, I was thinking of retiring, so I said I got to get a hobby. I was doing carving, but I always wanted to get into turning. Turns out some of the carvers were turners, and that's how I got into it. So 2010, I retired, and that's when I joined the South Florida Wood Turning Guild, and sometime in 2010, when I did retire, I joined the Gold Coast, and that's how I got into it. First thing I did do was pens, because I wanted to do something that was small, and I wanted something small, and in order to get used to the sharp tools, I didn't want to go anything big other than pens. That was the reason. So I've been now I'm into bowls and all kind of stuff, but every once in a while I still go back to pens. After I break out or I go through the bottom of a bowl and feel like I'm not on it, I just go back and make a couple pens. But I like to make pens more than one at a time. And I guess this is my way of doing it. I know Bill makes pens. I don't know if there's anybody else here that makes pens. So, get his name, Bill. Okay. All right, the first thing is you need some blanks. And there's a couple ways you can get your blanks. You can either make them yourself. So I just take a piece of wood that you have left from a bowl that you turn, any scrap pieces. I usually go with this big leaf, and I mark them. So I just remember what type of wood it is. It's big leaf maple. And I like to make the blanks either 3x3, 3/4 by 3/4 by 5 inches, or the smallest is 5/8 by 5 inches. And usually out of that you can get 2 pens. 1 pen or, 2 pens or more. If you buy a pen, they usually look like this. This is probably a 5/8, also 5, and it tells you the type of wood it is. So that's how you get your wood. Or if you have a friend like Jim, he brings you some wood. Okay, so after we find the blank, what we do is we cut it down. I cut it down to size. Next step is to take a piece of wood and cut it down close to the size of the finished blank. And how do you determine that? A lot of got ahead of myself. There's 2 types of pens, all right? There's what people call the bespoke or kitless pens. And what those are, I can pass this one around. This one was done by Ozzy Deschapelle. He did a demo, 2-part demo back in 2001, I believe. And he casts his own pen, he makes the bespoke, and that's all he does. He does bottle stoppers, but this is it. And the uniqueness is that the only thing that you purchase is the nib. Okay, thank you, Larry. All right. And then you have the nib, you have a section, which is then threaded into the body. And this is where the ink cartridge goes. So the only thing that you're buying is, of course, the reservoir for the ink and the nib. Everything else is made by hand. Okay? That is a bespoke or a kitless pen. I don't know where the name bespoke comes from, but kitless means, I have everything back here, so let me just. A kit pen looks like this, and on the illustration that I showed you, it shows you the different names or the different descriptions of the pen. So this is what comes in the kit. In the kit, you get a nib or a tip, you get a you get a brass tube that you put the wood on. That gives you the support for the whole pen, is the brass tube and the wood. Also, there's a clip assembly, the cap, a spring, and a refill in most cases. So that's the kit. All these extra pieces of hardware versus this pen that only has 1 piece of hardware. And a lot of these guys that do these kitless pens, they stop doing everything else once they start doing. They go for anywhere from $130 up to $300-400. And they use metal lathes to do the threads, but you can do it on a regular lathe. I did that a couple of times. I kept breaking, so I gave it up.
So you use the kit?
I mean, on the kitless pens. I tried making it, but the other thing with the kitless pens, I didn't mean to get on that, but the taps and dies that you use are not the Harbor Freight set that I got, but they go like $200-300 a piece. They're like a 3-step tap, do you call it, or something? And that's what they use.
Insertion tools that you're never going to use for anything else.
That's it. And that, you went to that for about $1,000 with all the taps and dies and it's some endeavor. Okay, so after I cut down my blank to where the wood is only like about a 1/16 overall, 32nd on each side, it's the only amount of wood that I have left. The next step is to drill it. And I'm going to drill it on the lathe. And so what I do is, this is called a pin jaw chuck. So what I do is I like to always, when I make pens, is find the center spot. And this one I kind of guess, but I usually draw 2 lines to get the, that's it, Larry, you're right on the ball. So I put that in, just loosely. This is a Jacob's chuck. These are all 2 Morse taper, that's why it fits. And each kit has a specific drill size that you need to use in order for the barrel to fit in the wood. Okay? And this one is 3/8, I believe.
This is 7mm.
3/8. There are 7mm and 8mm bits that you use for different kits. I mean, to give you an idea, I started off doing 2-3 types of pens. Now I've got something like 56 different sets of bushings. So that means that's 56 different types of pens, and some of them I only made once. But some of the bushings are interchangeable. And if you do this enough, I don't know, Bill, you run into it, you have a bag of bushings that you forgot where they go. You know? So there's
called a nightmare.
Yeah, there you go. There's an institution or organization called International IAP, International Association of Pen Turners. And some guy took the time to write down for every pen that's pretty much available. Here, let me get down here a little so you can see the tube size, the bushing size, you know, and the drill bit size. So if you've got those bag of drill bits and you want to start measuring them, you go to the spreadsheet and put in, this is 0.74, you know, diameter. Look for something 7.74, and you know, eventually you get to the bushing and what that kit is for. But it's here. If everybody wants to try it, I'll get you more. But okay, so I got the drill in here. I want to tighten it. Yes.
Why would you buy all those different types of kits and not just stick with one?
Because your wife said, why don't you try making this? This looks nice.
What's the difference? That's what I'm asking. Like, what is the difference?
Okay, let me just go over here.
Yeah, a lot of different
There's different styles, different types. You know, mostly people start off with the slimline pen, which is the easiest way to start in the kit. It goes anywhere from $3 to $2, plus you need 2 pieces of wood. So that's what most people start with. That's a 7mm drill bit. There you go, Igor. See? And then there's some other ones. Kay like this one. She said, "Well, that's a Kaleidoscope pen." So you look in here and you see a kaleidoscope.
It's a de-stressor.
And this is a blank by Ozzy. So that's how you get into these different. I started off with the slimline, then I went into what's called the Wall Street, and then little by little different pens. That's, if something comes out, then you try it. You know, there's a lot of bolt action pens, rifle pens that go pretty good. You know. All right, so we tighten that down, and I'm going to bring this up. And that's close enough to the center, and you can see where the hole is and how much wood you're going to have it around it. That's what you're shooting for. So let me back this off a little, make sure this is tight. Yep. I also do this on a drill press sometimes. If I have a blank that is, maybe I didn't cut it as a rectangle, it's a little off center, it's a little easier to do that on a drill press. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up. I checked this lathe ahead of time, made sure everything was slow. You want to do it like I don't know if any of you drilled on a lathe. It's a little different than actual drilling because the drill doesn't turn, because when you're drilling, your drill bit turns. This doesn't turn, it's standing still. This is what's turning. So it's just the opposite of a drill. And you want to go slow. Maybe I want to make sure. Also, if you can see it, we'll show it later. But there's a brad tip on this. Let me get out a little more. Thank you. See that, Brad? Oh, you're good there. Brad tip, which helps you get into the center. You know, the bit isn't going to wobble. But before I started using brad tips, there's another stub, is it? Stub drill?
Center drill.
Center drill. Stub, where did I get stub? Center drill that you put in there first, you do it, but now you got 2 steps before you start drilling. Okay, so let me.
When you say slow, you mean 300 RPM?
Exactly, yes. The speed you would use for, let's see.
Sandy?
Sanding, yep, thank you. That look like it, let's see. Yeah, that's as slow as this will go. Question. So what happens is, when you do the drilling, I always like to hold this only because I use a keyless chuck, and they have a tendency to move a little, so out of habit, I just hang on to this. And so what you do is, when you're drilling any wood, I haven't really started, man. So you just want to, in and out.
Warming up.
You want to keep cleaning the wood out as you're doing it. It's like when you're turning a bowl, what I've always done, is what I was taught, was use a 3/4 inch drill, and you drill the center of the bowl inch at a time or to the depth you want, so you don't have that little nib sticking out in the center. And it's the same, just every little bit, make sure that the drill bit is cleaned out. But sometimes I get carried away and just go for it, But once the drill bits get stuck in there, it's a little pain to get back out. You gotta usually get a pliers, clamp it on your drill bit, and just play around. But you want that clean. Pardon me?
You're going all the way through, right?
Yes, yes. And you'll know when it goes all the way through.
Which for a bowl you shouldn't do.
Now, and every once in a while, you gotta remember, you got your quill sticking out. You don't want it sticking out too far, so you bring it back. What some guys will do, depending on the wood, I do sometimes, is you just take this and you just go for it. What I didn't do here, I usually do, is I'll mark the drill as to what the depth is, so I know how close I'm getting. So that's another way to do it. You see, what happens is, the reason this gets hung up, especially if it's wet wood, you see the wood expands here, and that's what clogs up the hole. Yeah, you can do that, Tom, and you shouldn't be doing that. One thing good about being married to a nurse, if I get a cut on a bandsaw or something, I come in the house and I say, okay, I cut my finger, and the first thing she says, pick up your hand, don't bleed on the floor. So, there's good and bad, but she did put steri strips on it, and there's no scar, and I didn't have to clean the floor. That's a true story. There, I went through, you saw how it just kind of...
Ted, did you work the wild boar?
Pardon me?
Do you work the wild boar show?
Yes, I do. The Wild Hog Barbecue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You chuck this came out the lady.
No, it didn't. Yes, it did. Thank you.
I thought I recognized you from down there.
I was behaving, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's why I noticed you, because you were behaving.
Yes, Wild Hog Barbecue.
For almost 75 years.
Yep. I've been there for 5, 6. There was a
South Florida woodworkers.
wood turners. Yeah, one of our members, Tom Cross, I don't know how many, Tom Cross? He used to do it for years. And he moved to Point Pierce, and he did it for a couple of years, said, this is too far for me to go. Will you take over for it with me? And I did, and it's been good. Also, the good thing about that is you only have one type of vendor there. And since we've been there for a while, I've got that, that spot reserved. And also, because of them, the people from the Wild Airboat Association also asked for me to come there. And the Airboat Association is closer to Chrome than Wild Hog. Wild Hog is halfway between Miami and Naples. So it's a good haul. Monroe Station, if any of you are familiar with Monroe Station, that's where it is.
Well, my nose gone now, but
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
burned down.
yes.
You're actually how I got started in wood turning, because of you.
I feel good, and look at what you've done. Kind of
Took
look,
you 2 years to get me involved, but
oh, well. Thank you, Richard. Then, the key with these tubes is, some of them are scuffed and some are not. So you don't want a shiny tube because the adhesive won't hold when you glue it to the inside the blank. So I think I may have got the wrong.
Told you to use 7mm.
Tube for the wrong. That happens.
Nothing to do with that.
I got Igor. I got the wrong drill for the wrong drill. But as Igor would say, the magic of demonstrations. Wow, that was as long as they're all laughing about it.
Do you have one that's already done?
No, I don't have one that's already done, but I think I can get the point. Oh my goodness.
Plus, when you drill a smaller hole first, then the next drill bit works much less, has much less pressure on it when it's going through.
That's true, but
It's hard to go the other way.
now I just got to figure out what blank this is for. I'll start with the bushiness, see what size it is, and go from there. Okay, so thank you, Igor, for pulling me out of that one. So what you do next, I didn't bring any adhesives because it takes a while for the 5-minute epoxy. I like to wait overnight. I didn't sticky in the CA glue, there's fumes. So what you do is you can buy this pen insertion tool, which I did when I first started. But every once in a while, I don't know about you guys, you put it down in your shop somewhere and you can't find it. So I want to glue a tube, and so found a paintbrush that's tapered. That works just as good. So what I'll do then is I'll take a small stick and I'll, those political signs that you get in the mail, they're good. You cut those in the quarters and you put epoxy on that, you know, and you set up your epoxy and say, I have a little epoxy here. And what I do is, the first thing I do is a little puddle of epoxy, you know, like a dime drop epoxy, the resin hardener. And I'll stir it up, okay? Put a little bit on the stick. And then on the inside, the top, the ends, I want to rub a little adhesive there. And the reason I do that is when I put the tube in, I want to make sure that there's going to be adhesive there and hold it. A lot of times you'll get breakout, and the breakout is at the end. That's because you didn't get any adhesive there. So I put some adhesive on each end, and I look to see that it's there. Then I'll go back, take my blank, little epoxy, and I'll just put it on till it covers till it covers everything. I've tried brushes, I've tried my finger, and this little stick. And also, chopsticks work good too, you know.
what do you type on?
You know, no, I never use Type-On because it's metal, but I have used Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue works. The only thing with Gorilla Glue is you get a lot on the inside, but that's easy to clean out. But I use CA glue a lot at first, but now I go with this because I wait overnight anyways, even though it's a 5-minute cure. I forget how long to set up. Then I also keep a paper towel nearby.
Do you use CA glue ever?
I still do.
Do
And
you?
I'll show you some. All my finishes are CA glue.
No, I mean for gluing the tubes.
I do. I still use some thick is what you want to use for gluing the tubes. I do. If I want one done, I don't want to wait overnight, that's what I'll do it.
Do you use the accelerator with it, or?
Definitely, every time, yeah.
Okay.
But see, that's already in there, so you spray the accelerator around here, and so it gets in somewhat, but it doesn't get all the way in. But when I went to Woodcraft up in Pompano and took a lesson from the guy that turned pens, and he had us do pens all in one day, and we did it, sprayed it, and we didn't wait for it too long for it to dry. I mean, you finish a pen at the same time you're turning it. And for demos or for beginners, people that want to learn, that's a good item to show them because they can walk out with a pen.
And the thick gives you a little more time than the thin.
Yes, yes, and it seems to
Thin,
cover it.
I've had more tubes dry.
No problem.
Drop them?
No, you're pushing it in and it hardens and you can't, and you're done.
You know, for some reason, I'm going to keep going back to that blank. This is the one I want to put in there, the one that fits. So anyway, so this is covered with epoxy on the end, so you put it in here. And the tricky part is now, how do you get this, pull it out without that coming out? So there's a couple ways I've learned over the years, is with the, what's that? The adhesion of the epoxy, or you can go like this, wiggle it back and forth, and it'll come out because the epoxy is kind of holding it. I put my thumb here, okay, and just push it out. And of course, if that's why I keep the towel, then I'll wipe it off. And now, again, with the epoxy, it's going to sit there, it's not going to move. So what I do is I'll just take it and push it up my workbench just to make it square, okay, with a piece of wood, the blank, and I'll push it in a little. You know, I want a little space in there, in here, okay? So that's how you go from the blank, a piece of wood, to make a blank, take the blank, cut it to the right size, put a tube in it, now you're ready to go to the next step. Do this, then I'll, yeah, right there, because I'm going to do that next, that's why it's here. Igor's a big help. He's like the silent partner. All right, so now, if you would, I've got this piece of wood that I've got a tube in it that's epoxy. So what I do next is, I'll take this squaring off tool, and you'll see that there's a diameter here, the diameter of the inside of the tube, and that's good for if you get it closer to it. If there's any adhesive on the inside, that'll cut the adhesive off. And what you do is, I like to do this on my drill press because it's harder for me to see the brass tube. So what happens is, since you've got this recessed in the wood, you know, when you're turning like this, you stop when you see the brass shavings. When you see this, see that brass ring there? That means it's time to stop with the squaring off the end. Okay, if you take off too much, it's going to be too short and the pen tip isn't going to come out correctly. Okay, so I do both ends. Here's one that I left. You see, I left too much wood there. I didn't leave a 16th or 32nd overall. I just left a lot more wood. That's not a problem. So the next step is you take the chunks off. And get this out of my way. This is a reducer. The pin jaws that I was using was 1 1/4. This is 1 inch, so this goes from 1 1/4 down to 1 inch to fit on here. And also I find that it's good to have these rings on, because every once in a while, if you have a chuck on here and you tighten it too tight, you got metal to metal, and that's hard to get them off. I really had trouble with one once, and I make sure that I have a ring on it. I brought this one with me. And there's also a ring on here for the chuck. Whoop. All right, the next step is taking off the drill chuck. You know, if this is one that you just keep turning it and it, nope. That you just keep turning this one and it'll come off. Okay. Because all the ones I have now would say, yep. Sometimes it's good if Igor isn't silent. Anyways, so the next thing you need to do is to find a way to mount this piece of wood on the lathe, and that's called a mandrel. There's two types of mandrels. There's this type. This type is used for, like I showed you the slimline, this is a different pen. It's a cancer pen for cancer, and it's different sizes. One is thicker than the other, but you use this mandrel to do two types. The reason is you can line up the grain using it this way with two of them, and also this can also be used for a pepper mill. That's why I bought this one. At the very beginning, that's all I had. But now,
So that's another thing you have to buy to make.
oh, there's, yep. But you can use all the existing tools you have. You don't have to buy new tools. Heck, Laura didn't care about that too much.
If you buy used ones, you don't have to buy new ones.
There you go. All right, so what we have here, I like these mandrels. This is a single piece. This is for a live center. This is a live center. That's for the tailstock. And this is like a spur drive, but you see they both have Igor's favorite 7mm posts in them. So you put the bushing in. You have to put it in right. What I like to do is, before I even start, is make sure it'll go in there right, because sometimes there could be a little glue in there and you need to sand it out, or sometimes I take a little X-Acto knife and scrape it out.
So do those come with the kits?
The bushings, no, that's another exception.
Are you talking about the things that go in?
They're
A little bushing
$5.
that he's setting up now.
The things that go into
There's a,
the, no.
Bushings he's putting on there.
this is a handy tool.
You buy the kit,
Yeah.
you buy the bushes to match the kit.
Exactly. And the drill bit to match that particular length.
But the things you put on either side, you had to buy.
Yeah, the bushings.
Well, no, she's talking about the headstock and the tailstock.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is a mandrel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so that's part of the mandrel
No,
set.
you gotta buy.
No, it's two different mandrels I showed you. There's a single mandrel and the double mandrel that's also a pepper grinder.
I see, okay.
Yeah,
So this is a different type of mandrel.
yeah, because I'm only doing one piece of wood.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, the pen has one section. I don't know where I got this, but what this guy did is he took a Dremel tool, you know, the sanding drums on a Dremel tool, that's what this is. These are two of them drilled on a metal rod. And that's pretty slick. I put that on my drill bit, and then to clean it out, I'll just go in there and just, oops. You know, the drill to clean it out, so the bushing goes in there correctly. If your bushing's going to hang up and you force it in, you're going to have trouble putting a pin together, because when you go to put that together, that's going to hit that excess epoxy or whatever you have in there. Okay, that was just another way to clean it out. All right. So I've got my bushings on either end. One thing I didn't bring, I don't know why I had trouble. I think what happens, some glue or something gets on here and it just doesn't want to go in there. Or I could have messed up. And the funny thing about it is,
It's a lot.
I said fit on one and not the other, but it's the same size. Ah, it's a problem with that. So what I'll do here is just a little, there could be some gunk, not corrosion so much, but dirt. I can see the dirt. Yeah, look at the dirt on there. All right, put the bushing in. We have a little trouble getting it off, I can tell. All right, then just mount that here and here. Okay, tighten down here. Okay,
Bushings push up against the end of the tube?
yes,
That's where they stop.
that's a good question, because sometimes, I know Bill never did this, but you may forget to put the tube in. So if you try putting this up against the wood, yeah, it'll be tight, but once you start turning it, it'll start spinning because there's no support in there to hold the wood and turn it. But yes, that bushing is flat up against that square piece. I don't know if you saw that piece. That was good enough. See how flat that is? Oops. On the inside, let's see. Turn it towards you. Can you see? There. See, let me turn it a little. See how flat that is? I'm trying to, you can tell I'm not left-handed. See how flat it is there? So that's, the bushing fits up flat against there. And if that isn't flat, when you put your pen together, it's going to be cocked, and you'll see a gap when the pen is up against the tip. Not that that's happened, but it could. See, a lot of things that you do, you know, you've experienced, it's happened, right, Bill? A lot of things that go wrong. And another thing you do, put my mask on for this, I always I like to read this stuff. So what I'm gonna use, the tools that I started off using my 3/4 inch spindle roughing gouge, because that's what I had a set. You know, that's all I turned them with. And so later on, I went with one of Pam's favorites, the conventional, or the gouge. I also bought a carbide, and that's great for acrylics. Okay? But lately, I've been using the skew because I want to practice using the skew. And I don't know, I think Jerry's talked about how to use the skew when you do the demonstrations with the tool. You want to make sure that when you're digging into it, you always want to do the lower quarter or 3/4 of it. You don't want to ever get this involved in your piece of wood. You only do that once.
Or twice,
Or, yeah,
or 3 times.
or more.
Lots of times.
Yeah, that wasn't
I've made
tight.
a lot of screws, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Okay, that wasn't tight, you know? It is not. Is this one of these that creep? Nope. Sometimes these tailstocks creep. All right, let's see how this goes.
You had to tighten it up the first time?
No, I saw that I had a ways to go, and I would have known right away, because when I went to cut it, it would spin. It wouldn't just sit there and spin. So let's get this. So I'd like to do this a little faster. You notice I had some extra pieces of wood there when I did the flatting. I used to worry about that, take it on a bandsaw and cut it off, but you don't have to, because it comes off pretty fast. You can tell when it's getting round, you can hear it. What I did there is I wanted to see if I had any of this extra wood, and I still have a little bit there. Another way to get rid of it, I'll just take, I can still use this tool, turn it on, turn it, on mine, I just do a little, use it like a scraper. And that way I've got that nice and flat, come over here. You're tired of that happening, you just take your gouge, any gouge, and just get rid of that square. You can hear it, you can feel it when it's spinning around. That's still rough. We'll go back to the skew. As I've been doing the skew more, it's just when I do 2 or 3 of the same size, you can tell that was much easier cut because it was rounder than the first cut. The other thing you never want to do is when you're using a skew is go in from the end. And you know why? It's because this is end-grained wood. And end-grained wood, if you remember that example I gave you, it's like holding a handful of straws. You know, if it's on the lathe and you're going this way with the straws, it's fine, but if you come in from the end, it's just going to split. So you never want to come in from the end. You never want to come in from the end. Yeah, that's good. You never want to come in from the end. You always, so on this end, I'm coming in like maybe a 1/2 inch, and then take it all the way over. Coming in for about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch. And what I do with the skew is I sharpen it every so often. I'd like to be real sharp. And what I do, I have a little diamond stone somewhere. One thing you should never do when you're sharpening tools, holding them, you should never go like this. And the reason is, whether you know it or not, you're gonna be doing this. You're gonna be rounding the edge of that tool before you realize it. So, what you do is, you lay your stone down flat, and just, I do it like one, whoop, I stuck my finger, you notice that? 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, it's bleak, never mind.
Get your hand up in the air.
Get it on the
1,
carpet.
2, 3, 4. I just like to keep it even on each side. No stitches today. All right, you can see it's starting to get round. So really crank her up. Sure that's tight. And I'm starting at the top and coming down with my skew. And at this point, you can either shape it a little, either by making it like a barrel, where it's thicker in the center, thinner on either end if you want, or just make it straight. And what I want to do here is, shouldn't do that, is make sure that the blank and the bushing are flush. That way you know it'll fit on the pen. You can get it close and you can sand it the rest of the way if you like. That one went awful close, that's almost done. A little bit there. Okay, that's probably as far as I'll take it. Turning it. And then what I'll do is sandpaper, and this is what I mean in the instructions. This is the way the grain goes. And what I'd like to do is, see this dot here? Okay, what I do is, I'll just go back and forth. I don't never use any power sanding or have the lathe spinning when I'm doing it, because I'll put circles on there and it'll be hard to get it out of the wood. So I'll just go back and forth, keep turning by hand, and wait till I come around to that dot. Then I know I've done the whole blank. That was something I invented, that dot on the... Or, I do the same thing, I think Mike mentioned it when he was doing his turning, is when you put a piece of wood on a chuck, at the number 1 location, you mark it on the wood tenon, so you know where to put it back at the same place. But here, this is just a gauge for me to...
And you've gone all the way around.
Yep. And because I use the skew, this is like 220. And that's all I'll do. Okay? And next, this is where you have to use your imagination. So now what I'll do is I'll take it off the bushings, take the bushings off. And then they have these little, they're made for when you use CA glue on a blank, so the CA glue doesn't stick to the blank. If I left the bushings on there and I use CA glue, it would stick to the bushing. They're a little tough to get off sometimes. These never stick. So I put this on, and we know it's squared up, and these are...
Oh, that's nylon.
No, it's not nylon, it's a HDPI, is that material. And you can buy them in a pack of 5 or 6. They're not that expensive, it's worth it.
Gotta buy those too.
Yep, I mean, there's a lot to this.
It's like it's possible.
So we're up to $100 for
Right,
the first
you're
pen?
It's not as bad as the lathe and the tools and the chuck, and, well, it's basically, you really have the tools.
It goes on my present.
Okay, so this is my secret to my CA glue finish, or my epoxy finish. I take a bounty towels, blue towels, I cut them up to little squares, I fold them over 2, 3, 4 times, and what I'll do, get this out of the way. It comes, there we go. I'll put a dab of now I'll turn the machine on, and I always wear a shield. One of those cheap shields are $11 at Harbor Freight, because the first time I did it, I left my glasses on, and some of the CA glue gets in your your glasses, and that ruins them. Okay, so let's see. Let me start off with a lower speed. That's a little too fast. I wouldn't have that fast. So I'll put my little dab of CA glue on here. Then I'll just go back and forth. And then when I start feeling it bind, I'll stop. So I'll take my accelerator, a couple squirts. I'll feel it to make sure that it's dry. Because we go like this, it's, you know, for some reason it sticks. But this way, with this part of your finger, it doesn't. Then I don't know why. But you got to be careful. You put too much on there, it'll go through. Sometimes the paper towel sticks to your finger. That comes off in a day or two. The good positive thing is if you want to get rid of fingerprints, that's how you do it. A little CA glue, pull it off. So then I'll go to the other side. Another CA glue. You know. Let me show you. Give you how it works. Just to show you, that's it, perfect. So I'll put a little CA glue on the rag. And you can see how you know it's covering? You'll see this, you'll see it all the same color with the CA glue or the epoxy. You know, it's even, so you know you've got enough on there. So I do that. There's a couple different types of CA glue. I've done it with Star Bond, with the Craft Supply, and also the Mercury makes this flex glue that's really nice.
Do you prefer the thick or the thin for this?
I go with the medium. What is it called? Medium thin or light? Medium thin Star Bond.
Heavy thin.
No, not the heavy thin. The medium
Medium
thin.
thin?
Yeah, there's a medium thin. I did the last batch. I did use the heavy thin because I didn't have any of the other. Yeah, you can do the thin. You may have to put 6, 7, 8 coats. With the heavy thin, it looks like only 3. You know. So you got your CA glue on here. You know, back and forth, back. And you get to a point where with regular CA glue, it's about 7. If you get that, run it that far. And then after that, with the other CA glue, it's only about 3, 4. Then the next step is after that's all done, I feel it, and if it feels a little bumpy, I'll take some wet sandpaper. You know, have water down here and just a little wet sandpaper. You know, on the CA glue, and I'll go like 800, 1,000, 2,000. It really buffs it up nice. You know, it may be a little cloudy, but it's nice and smooth. And then, the last step is using this magic juice. It's 6 little bottles, something else you have to buy. And you put one, what I used on this one was, see how that shines? Was a CA glue, and I used Triple E, shell wax Triple E, shell paste, and I went Yorkshire Grit, Yorkshire Microfine, that's made for this, and I always put polish on after that. But here, if you just pass this around, this is the finish you get, and the buff force it.
Dave, I have a question. Is that an abrasive liquid? Is that what?
No, it's more like a paste.
Oh, it's a paste.
So
Okay.
here, you want to take it? It's plastic, so it's not going to break. You can take a look at it. You put like the drop is a sign of the size of the tip of your eraser on a pencil.
How much is this bag?
I don't remember, it wasn't much. They sell much bigger, but I have a lot more. I mean, I don't remember when I bought it. It's been at least 2 years, but I had it. The bag wore out before the stuff dried up, and that's why I just put it in another bag.
Have you tried the Star Bond makes a 2-part, or not a 2-part, but 2 application, not 6 applications of a polish, and then a finish polish.
No, I didn't.
And I did a bunch of bottle stoppers when
Okay.
I first got started, and it was like a mirror.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
But did you
real fine cream.
Right.
And the ultra finish, which is the second one, it's like you
Or the
can't
other way
even
around.
feel.
Mhm.
It's
You can find
it's
any
like you're
blemishes.
putting on almost hand cream.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, that's how that
it's
is.
that smooth.
Yep, that's how that, with the grades
It's
of it.
amazing. It looks like it's that deep.
But,
Would that be the same as using, I have a little stack I forget the
micro mesh,
micro,
Micro
yeah.
pads.
micro
Micro
pads,
pads would be basically the same thing?
that's what I do. But see, now with the micro pads, it was used for acrylic, I guess. But I did that for the longest time, I still have them. But now, with the CA glue, I don't know if it makes a difference, but I saw Ozzy do the demonstration. What he did, he kept changing it. Every time he showed us a demo, he'd change his formula. But I started off with like 320. You know, I didn't want to go through all those grits all the time. So now I go to, depending what it is, maybe 220, 320, that's it. And then I put the CA glue, you know, I don't know if I mentioned it, but with that, then I'll go with the wet sandpaper a little bit in between each coat, and that kind of buffs it up. But, yeah, I tried many different ways, and now what I've been working is we went to the show in Raleigh, and I bought some Yorkshire grit, and I've been playing around with that. They make the Yorkshire grit microfine just for acrylic, but I still use the regular Yorkshire grit, the acrylic, and then put wax on it just to finish, because the Yorkshire grit isn't the final coating that you put on anything. And then when it gets time to put things together, there's, if you're cheap, I mean not cheap, frugal, maybe that's it, frugal. Let's see if I get this, how much time do I have here, bud?
What time is it?
8:39.
You have about 6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay, we're
No,
at
you don't even have 6 minutes.
that. Okay,
We gotta do,
yep,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, I say gallery.
All right, I'll just do this real quick, I'll show you, I won't do it. But there's two other things I just want to touch, and that'll be it. Okay, to put this together, all you need, you can buy
Give you the time.
many different ways to put your pen together. It's a press fit. I use the press,
Press, yeah.
okay, and clamps that have it on a piece of paper. The Lowe's and Home Depot make them, the hand grip clamps. But I found out you just make yourself a piece of wood with a tenon on it. Doesn't even have to be to Morse taper. And I found by gluing a piece of corian, there's a cutting board from Publix. They use that for other things, okay? Because it doesn't tear it up as much. You see those holes in there? That's from the nib, okay? But so you put one in each side, and I usually have tape on it to hold it so I didn't have to keep juggling with them. So the tape wears off, okay? And then what you do is you take your pen blank, that's right, I keep putting it here, Igor, and I keep forgetting it's here. You gotta pay attention to you more one of these days. Okay, the way that I always keep these containers, a container to put all my parts in when I'm doing an assembly. So what I'll do, I'll read the instructions. This one says,
What are,
Lost all the gun in the room.
and
Get a lot of money.
It all depends on which kit.
I don't see the threaded coupler. Oh, yes, I do, it's right here. So this one's got a threaded coupler on it, okay? You have to read the instructions. And what it is what's gonna happen is the nib's gonna screw into this. So since this tube is hollow, you need to add this coupler, okay? So like this, put this in here, hold this up, bring it up close. And this is one that's got CA glue on it also, and I just use Yorkshire grit. But it's one of these inlays that you buy. So all those flames were put in, the flames were there, the red, or all the black had to be put in each piece. I forget how many pieces there are. So I go here, tighten this up, loosen up here, and I find I have more control, you know, with the pressure I'm putting on rather than the press. And also, with
The clamps.
the clamp, or they make a press and more control with this. So easy peasy. So it went in there nice and easy because the inside was cleaned out real good. Okay. Well, you have to have a wife that, you know, that's why she picks the pens. You see?
So, just out of curiosity, what would be like the initial investment in all of the things that you need just to turn a pen? And then what's the cost of buying the parts to make a pen?
It varies so much. Let's just say like with a Wall Street pen, you know, or the one that I passed around, the Gatsby, maybe that's $12 for the kit, then another $5 for the bushing, so that's $17. Okay, just for the kit and the bushings. You can make your own pieces here. You can use a paintbrush, you know, to put them in. So, but then I don't really remember what the price of the mandrels are, you know. That's
You
maybe,
can get them on Amazon, like the double ones.
Yeah.
For like $17.
Yeah.
They're really crappy, but for like to get it going, it's okay. So my personal, if you take $100,
If
you
you
will
do
make
what?
a pen and you'll have the tools to make.
The next one.
But what do they sell for typically? What is it? I mean, I know there's a lot of different types of pens.
I never sold anything ever made.
I sold 2 pens at the flea market a few weeks ago, a Slimline for 30, Teakwood, and I sold a Navigator pen out of Teakwood for 60.
yeah, that's what would, some nines go for about 30.
Yeah.
Like that Kaleidoscope pen, that cost me like, I forget how much for the kit, but we sell them for $75, and people pay $75 for them. Also, if you go to Penn State, they'll show you how much they recommend high, low, and medium to sell, you know? So I put the insert in, so now what I'm gonna do is put the top part, the section.
And what about like the ink, you know, how like, I don't know, Pilot pens have like gel,
The kit
You
comes,
can buy, refills come with it.
when you buy a kit, it comes with everything.
but I mean, is the quality of the pen tip good? Like
Yes,
not like
it's a cross.
I think you can buy pen-specific kits that will use like a cross or a Parker refill.
That's what I mean, like a good, like a, or a gel
Yeah.
type.
Right.
Yeah, they do
It's
come,
more expensive.
they come with a cross type or Parker type refill, and they're almost as good as the name brand. Okay? They also have the gel, they have roller balls, you know, so then I want to put the top part in. And this doesn't take long at all.
It's not necessary to center those when you're doing that?
I did, I got lucky and they're centered,
Okay.
you know, to make sure that's tight.
I mean, centered on the lathe, you have it like at the top of the
Yep.
back.
Well, see, if you don't, you'd see it cocked here, then you can adjust it.
You got a top unlock.
That's okay.
Do it over Parker.
Because of the CA finish, oh, it just dinged in up a little there. Yep, it just kind of, I can fix that, buff it out. It just dinged the CA, you're gonna sort of do is put on the buffing wheel, it'll buff right out. But that's the thing, when you do something like that, you learn how to take these apart. Because after you did a couple, I'll mess with that later. After you do a couple, you just don't want to throw the whole $29 away or whatever it is. So you learn how to take them apart. And the best thing I bought to take them apart was this clamp. Okay, so what you do is you have your pen, visualize that's the whole pen, okay? And I've got my nib here, so you take a drill, what do they call them, the punch set? Punch set. You put a punch in here, the diameter. You put a punch in here that's close to the diameter of this. Then you have a container like this. You have a wooden hammer. You tap it 2 or 3 times, it pops out.
I mean, like a drift pen.
It's like a punch pin. You just point it.
It's got straight sides. though.
Yeah, it's straight.
Sides.
Yep. And that's how you take them apart. Then once you have it apart, then you can just take your blank, you know, and fix it. Also, what I found is sometimes you go to take it apart and you want to grab one piece and you can move it. So I got another one of these vice grips. and I just put some plastic tubing on it. So I can then grab the cap and pull it out while I'm holding it with the other one. That's a doodad.
necessity.
Hey, you did our doodad
There you go.
minute for us.
All right, that's it.
Okay.
One other thing is, when you buy a kit, I always buy extra tubes, because if you mess one up, you know, the wood, you can get another piece of wood, but you got that whole kit that you can't use it anything unless you have another tube to finish it.
Actually, Woodcraft sells like a little bag full of tubes, different sizes.
They do.
different-
I even gone so far as some of the 7mm for the slimline you use.
Like they were-
You can buy like a foot length of them, 10 of them for cheap price.
I'm amazed by it.
Then any questions? I think I've covered it all.
How much-
All right, thank you.